Okay, so just in case this session is being recorded so that later it can be uploaded to relevant source for review. More likely YouTube, but we'll see. So anyway, hello, welcome, welcome to this workshop, which is dedicated to some of the software that I personally have been using for many years, and cannot recommend highly enough if you want to actually improve your productivity with respect to documenting research or documenting technical stuff and so forth.
Sorry.
Yeah, so today we have let's say a workshop on LyX, JabRef, and other tools that hopefully will help you be more productive in writing and so forth. So I will now share my screen and we can actually get started with the materials. Oops. Okay, so first of all, there's a web page that I would like you to visit, which is specifically dedicated to this workshop, where you can get all the relevant materials. So in order to access that web page, let me just save this presentation. Yeah, so this is the link. Hopefully you can see it. So cis.ttu.ee/LyX21. And from this webpage, you can get all the necessary supporting materials that you might need for this one. So probably you will not have time to install, let's say, the backend solutions and LyX, JabRef, all while I'm doing the theoretical part of this talk. But if you can, then that is also helpful if you want to follow the rest of the workshop. However, the idea of the workshop is not so much to teach you to use LyX or JabRef or something like this, but to introduce these tools, because there is a learning curve, as with any software that has, which is open source and not necessarily streamlined for perfect user experience. There is a learning curve. So, but still, I encourage you to try that software, because if you know how to use it, if you know its quirks and things, you will be more productive in your work, especially if you have to document lots and lots of things. Okay, so before we actually get started with the theoretical part, I just wanted to give a heads up regarding some motivation for using this software. So one thing that I have here is a kind of project that we've been developing for some time in the scope of an Erasmus Plus project. So this includes, the project itself includes various components, but one of them is so-called state-of-the-art of extended reality technologies. And this one was created using LyX as well. So if I just to give you a quick overview of that. So we have a document like this, which contains a title page, which is a separate PDF document. Then we have let's say, the writing part, the document part, let's say, of the state of the art. And then finally, we go to the template part, which is not implemented in LyX directly. However, this is where some additional coding comes in. And so we create a full-fledged document generator based on LyX, based on LaTeX, and then based on some Python coding, which I'm not going to go into as this is a separate topic. But as a result of this, if you go, let's say, to a specific result, the result is something like this. So we get a document, in this case, it's just published on the web, but it's a PDF document. And so you see it's very nicely formatted and it contains all of the parts and so forth. So the beginning where the writing takes place, the actual writing, I mean, based on the LyX template. And then we also have these additional generated parts, like for instance, hardware, where you can see that automatically somehow we generate this LaTeX code, and then you also get this nice formatting here. Okay, so this is just to show that LyX and LaTeX specifically have real-world usages outside of just being, let's say, a tool for writing. They can also be used for things like this. I would not imagine using Word for something like this, but okay. That's a different set of questions. They were going to have a look at how this can be used with Tech LaTeX and LyX specifically. Okay, so let's get started. Hopefully, if you want it, you got the links, and so you can either start downloading, installing the necessary software. Maybe you have some of it. This tutorial will concern Windows platform only, but LyX, LaTeX, and all those things actually work with other platforms, other popular platforms such as Linux and Mac. So depending on what you're using, you can definitely find something that will support your workflow in case of this tool set. Okay, so a few words about myself to those who may not know me. So I'm now senior researcher at Center for Intelligent Systems, Department of Computer Systems, Tech University. I'm also head of Extended Reality Lab, hence the report that you have just seen as one of the things that we're doing. Research, 10 years experience, software development, 16 years of experience. And I also hold a number of different positions in IEEE, which is a nonprofit organization. Those who do not know about IEEE, definitely check it out. And you can reach me with the email you can see on this slide in case of questions. So, okay, today's workshop will consist of two parts. The first one will be a kind of introduction, a bunch of slides that we will go through, and some basic introduction into the topic of Tech LaTeX and LyX, and then we are going to have the second part as the actual hands-on exercise, which you can follow if you take the recording into consideration, for example. You can follow later. Okay, so we will discuss what is Tech LaTeX, again, to those who do not know this. A brief introduction to LaTeX, software overview, what you can use, then important considerations when working with LaTeX, other useful software, and some references. Okay, so essentially, where it all began, it began with one of the more prominent computer scientists, Donald Knuth, being a little bit upset about the quality of the proofs he'd been handed regarding his monumental work, The Art of Computer Programming. He was upset at the quality of the proofs, which were done using let's say, previous iteration of the technology. And so he decided, okay, maybe I should contribute in this way, that I will create a typesetting system that will completely satisfy all my needs. And so he did. And this was Tech, the first, let's say, the foundation. And it's pronounced Tech, okay? So not Tex, please do not mispronounce it. So then Tech was really nice in terms of what it offered the user, but it was also quite complicated. So if you wanted to write a document using Tech, you had to learn a quite a complicated set of different let's say, programming structures. but then you also had to have experience in typography. So like, okay, so Donald Knuth is an exception. Let's say he is a profound person, no doubt. But your average user, even if he is a research scientist, probably doesn't have that experience in typography necessarily. So for that reason, the next iteration came about, which is LaTeX. And this is a kind of HTML for professional documents, I would say so. Of course, you can also write additional code in LaTeX. You can produce quite profound results. Okay, if necessary, you can also go back to tech and write in tech directly within LaTeX. But LaTeX simplifies things a lot. Okay, so as we will see, the code for it or the markup is fairly straightforward. One thing also is that we will even further simplify it by using LyX because we want to be productive. We don't necessarily want always to write code. So LyX gives you that plus a whole lot more, especially when it comes to more complicated typographical features like constructing tables and things like this. Okay, so this is a kind of introduction to both LaTeX and LyX, tech to a lesser degree, but still. Let's see. So first of all, a little bit of motivation why you would want to use tech and LaTeX. So one of the main reasons that I find is that there's so much experience put into these systems in terms of typography that the regular user would not even need to worry about introducing additional features too much. So typography in itself is fairly complicated art, let's say, with many different aspects that need to be taken into account when you produce documents that you intend to be read, okay? So typography is an art in many ways, although there are some rules that you can follow that will greatly enhance your writing. I would still suggest to use experience, especially if it is available, of people who have, let's say, more of it, more of this experience. So therefore, you get a set of professionally crafted documents. You also have a set of templates for various reasons, for various purposes. So you can write a book in LaTeX. You can write a conference paper in LaTeX. You can write a report, a technical report in LaTeX. You can do pretty much anything, including slides, by the way, which is what I also used LaTeX to prepare this set of slides. There are some quirks, but it also works in this way, especially if you have lots of mathematics. I think you will appreciate, I mean, if you work with lots of mathematics, you will definitely appreciate the versatility of this set of tools and tech LaTeX specifically. So typesetting quality of mathematical formulae, of course, very, very nice. Structure. So LaTeX comes with a Okay, there was a bit of a hiccup there. I'm not sure how much of this you heard. So anyone from the audience, what did you hear last?
It freezed approximately for 20 seconds, I think.
Okay, okay. All right, thank you. So let's continue. I've connected to, let's say, wired internet, so hopefully now it will be good. Okay, so let's continue. So the thing I mentioned last is that if you work with lots of mathematics, then in this case, LaTeX will be of great help to you because, well, obviously Donald Knuth was and is a computer scientist, and working with lots of mathematics is what he obviously did and still does. So that is a feature that was kind of cornerstone. Logical structure, so of the document, this is again a very important feature of LaTeX. Whenever you want to improve your workflow considering the structural elements of the document, be it sections or like references or citations or anything like this that has to somehow to do with structure, then in this case, LaTeX is a super time saver. And you will really enjoy, if you, for example, if you use LyX specifically, you will really enjoy this process rather than trying to figure out or remembering, okay, how did I name this reference? How did I name this one? Okay, with LyX, everything is automated very nicely. But you can also use LaTeX if that is your thing. Okay. Another important aspect of TechLaTeX ecosystem is that they also have lots and lots of extensions in terms of packages. So a lot of features that you may want to see in your documents, like for example, I don't know, maybe having a Gantt chart directly printed in your PDF. You can do that with a package in LaTeX, or even sheet music. So even that is supported very nicely if you want to generate, let's say, liner notes or something along those lines. I mean, who knows what you may want to do. You can do it as well. Today, of course, we primarily discuss the technical aspects, but who knows, right? So a lot of packages that support all these features and let you do various things and draw various interesting stuff. Like I didn't even mention something like PS-Tricks or PGF or something along those lines, which allows you to programmatically create diagrams and plots and graphs and whatever you may want directly from your document. Of course, with LyX, I would probably prefer, if I were doing this, I would probably work with pure LaTeX, but it's also possible to do in LyX if you want. Okay, and did I mention that the software is open source, basically free, so you can use it in commercial setting, no problem. Okay. So, of course, there are some obstacles moving to TechLaTeX, and one of the biggest ones, I guess, is that products similar to Microsoft Office are so abundant, but they're commercial products, and so it's not a big mystery as to why this happens. People get used to it. People get used to this ecosystem of writing documents in terms of what you see is what you get, which is fine if you know typography, for example, or if you can live with some of the less advanced features of Word, Microsoft Word, but still leaving that comfort zone is the first step when you are moving to something like LaTeX. Okay, so learning curve. Obviously, there is a learning curve. With LyX, it is less prominent than with pure LaTeX, but still you will run into issues from time to time, and you would need to kind of do a bit of web searching. A lot of questions have been answered on the web, so I can say because I've also been there at the beginning. I've been using LyX for more than 10 years at this point, so you can definitely find help, and even with more advanced features. With LyX, though, there's also the documentation, which is quite detailed. I will get to that later, but all of the features that you may want to use are described there. You just need to go and read it. Okay, so and one thing that typically deters people from using this ecosystem is the aging nature of the original implementation of TechLaTeX and BibTeX. BibTeX is intended for bibliographies. So yes, that is evident. One of the bigger problems, I guess, for people in terms of productivity and workflow enhancement is the fact that, for example, if you're working with TechLaTeX, typically you do not have the ability to use Unicode, which is a big problem for a lot of people. So it was intended for writing in English primarily, so I guess Canute did not really care about introducing some of these features. However, it has been solved. It has been solved lately with the introduction of XATEC, Lua LaTeX, and so forth, and also BibLaTeX. So these guys will allow you to use Unicode without a problem. But remember that some of the templates, templates that are available, let's say for conferences and journals, are not yet there. So they're not yet fully compliant with the new standards, with BIP LaTeX and so forth. So you still will have to learn to live with some of these quirks, which is not a big problem. You just need to know that they exist and you need to address them if they come up. Okay, so I've already spoken a bit about the history of tech with Donald Knuth spearheading the development of tech in in the 80s. Then comes LaTeX, which was contributed initially by Leslie Lamport and friends. So, this is where LaTeX or tech became accessible by a wider audience because of the, let's say, of the ability to work with markup and not with the complicated expressions that determine the structure of the document. So yeah, and one of the things about LaTeX is a different kind of idea of what it gives you. So with let's say Microsoft Word or with OpenOffice Writer and software similar to that, the idea is what you see is what you get. So what you have on the page as you're typing, this is the, let's say, the final output. This is how it's going to look like when you print the PDF or print it using printer or something like this. But with LaTeX and LyX also, the main idea is instead that authors should be able to focus on the content of what they are writing without being distracted by the visual representation. This is very important because it allows us to go faster with the actual content rather than worrying, oh my God, this figure will float away from this position. Oh no, this text will be on the next page. Where do I insert the page break? So all of these questions are completely useless when you're focusing on the content, right? So it's not to say that LaTeX will just magically give you the perfect document. It's not that either, but it's still far easier to control what is going on in LaTeX. And so you're still able to focus on the content and not on these various issues with formatting. Okay, so what are the applications? So books, obviously, this was the original aim of Knuth. Manuscripts, presentation slides, web publications, this is something that I would not necessarily recommend, given the aging nature of tech LaTeX. However, in some ways, it can still be used. Like, for instance, if we consider bibliography, in that case, one of the recent examples that I can give is I've been working on a website which has bibliography as a major part of it, right? So the backend for that is BibTeX. With all its quirks, with all its problems, still I decided to go with BibTeX because it's such a powerful and simple way to describe publications, right? So I would not necessarily recommend using LaTeX for preparing web content because there's so much out there that you can use as an alternative, but you can consider some of the features the state-of-the-art report that I have shown you previously. The way it works is there's a database that is created on the web, and then there's the LyX template with the writing, and then what's happening is the content is pulled from the web, not published as LaTeX to the web, but pulled from there, and then converted into LaTeX, and then it kind of produces the final document. So in some of those applications, I think makes sense, but like purely LaTeX perspective, I don't think so. I would not use this to generate HTML. Okay, so let us now have a look at what LaTeX in its pure form looks like. So in this case, we have a very simple document, and let's go a little bit over the structure of the markup language. And today we're also going to have a look at LyX, where you will not see this code directly by default, but right now let's just see the markup. So it all begins basically here. The first 4 lines is something that we call preamble. So this is where you can insert various things, like for instance here. the document begins by specifying the document class, obviously. So this determines the kind of output we will get. So we have document class of type article. This is a default class in LaTeX, which is highly customizable. There are also other customizable classes, like for instance, report. Article is the default one, but if you want, let's say, more features, or you want some specific features, you can look at other classes that you may wish to customize. So article in this case is the class. So you can see that there are certain symbols that you will encounter all throughout using TeX-LaTeX, which is the backslash character. Then we have curly braces, and then we have like regular square braces. So these will determine various features of the structure of the markup. So in the first example where we specify the document class, we have article as the, let's say, main argument of the document class, which determines what kind of, let's say, output we're going to have with a specific document class. But then there's also an optional argument, this 12 points, this guy over here. This determines the text size. Okay, 12 points is the base size for everything else. And this is a kind of optional argument that we can specify with this document class. Okay, so this is the first thing that we do. Next, what is happening is we are pulling a specific package. We want to use a specific package. In this case, this is AMS math, which contains math expressions that will be used to generate the equations. So for instance, here you can see we have a bit of math over here. Maybe blue is not the best color. Let me just redo this. So we have a bunch of math here, and we will see how this will be converted into actual output on the next slide. But the point is that we need to use this package in order to be able to generate this nice math. Okay, what happens next? We have title. This is another structural element. So we specify the title of the document. And you see all of these commands begin with backslash, right? Also, we have specific structures that we use. For example, if you say backslash LaTeX, and by the way, case sensitive. So in that case, what you could expect in the generated document is the LaTeX logo, something like this, which we will see on the next page. So you can create such constructs yourself, by the way. So you can create whatever you want. You can create macro definitions with parameters, like if you have a bunch of equations that repeat over and over again, you can create a math macro, and then you can just use that. And in LyX, this is so much simpler, actually, than even in LaTeX. But if you want, you can use it in LaTeX, and you can create custom commands that will generate the output that you're looking for. Okay, so it's I understand that this caters more to kind of programming nature of people, but even if you are not a big fan of programming, or if you don't know programming or something like this, you can still use LyX. A lot of these features are automated, and so you will not necessarily need to code as much, maybe insert a few structural elements here and there, but not as much as you would with LaTeX. Still, next, we have the date command over here. It's empty, which means that I don't want to show any date. But you can also specify here the specific date. So it's kind of metadata. And it also pertains to something that we call front matter of the document. Okay, and then once all of this is done, at this boundary, we have begin document. So a lot of things in LaTeX have the structure of a kind of environment, which begins with begin, and then the specific structural element, and then it ends with end, and then you have to specify the same one, right? So it's a kind of, in HTML, you can think about opening and closing tags, for example. It's a bit like that. But this specifies the environment, and this is the main environment, specifically because this is the document body. So first thing that you want to do in the document body is to actually generate the title. So depending on the type of document, could be the front page, or maybe it will be the title slide or something like that. So once you do this, you just begin writing the actual document. Now, in this document, we don't have substructural elements like sections, chapters, and things like this. Depending on the document class, you will have different selections of these available structural elements. Like it is obvious that for a book, you will have a bit of different structural elements that you would have for an article, for example. So in case of this document, there are no additional structural elements. Here we have, again, this command LaTeX, and the curly braces simply ensure that we do not mix it up with the rest of the text. So you can simply ignore them as well. So here we just begin writing the document. Here's another command, tech, which will typeset the tech logo, which is just, let's say, a smaller version of LaTeX without the LA. Comments in LaTeX are written with a %sign, like this. So this will not be shown in the final output. And then we have a mathematical structure over here. And there's a very important distinction between text mode and math mode in LaTeX. So text mode is here. Text mode is over here, for example. So let's call it text, right? But whenever we enter an environment which is a math environment like a line, we go into something that's called math mode. Okay, so this is math mode, and so the things that you can do in math mode and text mode are completely different, and it will be interpreted differently by the compiler. Okay, so you cannot just write text in math mode. It is expected that you will write mathematical symbols. This is an important distinction, even for inline math, which is sometimes specified with $signs, for example. If you write something like this, a equals 0 in inline math, maybe inserted somewhere in the document, like here, it will also be math mode, although it's inline. You have to make this distinction. This is really important. If you want to insert text into math mode, you have to use some additional constructs, like, for example, text or RM or something along those lines. But in general, text mode, math mode do not mix, okay? This is important, and sometimes this is really confusing to beginners, so this is why I mention it here. Okay, but enough of this introduction. Let's see what the example output from this code will look like. And it looks like this. Already here you can see that the quality of typesetting is rather high, right? Especially the math. I mean, my goodness, math and LaTeX just work beautifully together. But yeah, this is what you would get if you compiled the document. So you can see that these commands here, this LaTeX command over here, what it does is generates the actual LaTeX logo over here. And this is a command, it defines some set of instructions for the compiler to typeset the logo specifically in this way. And you can also see that it works well as a title because the font size is different, but it also works inline as well. So very, very powerful stuff. Right, so what about implementations? If you want to use TeX-LaTeX, what would you use? So personally, since I'm using primarily TeX-LaTeX on Windows, I'm using MikTeX. But I've also used on Linux, I've used TeX-Live. So this also has a port for Windows, but I would probably recommend using MikTeX on Windows. If you want to use it on Linux, then TeX-Live is what you need. And because of the flexibility of, let's say, Linux implementations, it's enough just to install LyX. So you do something like apt install LyX on Linux, let's say Ubuntu or something similar, and then it just pulls TeX-Live, the necessary files, the libraries, all that stuff for you. So it's very easy. Takes a bit of time because the backend compilers are fairly complicated and have fairly a lot of various implementations, binaries, and so forth to make this happen. But like, for example, with MikTeX, the full installation actually waits at around 4 gigabytes, maybe a little more. And by the way, regarding this, in the materials that you've been introduced at the beginning of the seminar, there's a link to the full installation of MikTeX from my OneDrive. If you want to install MikTeX, please use the full version. So just download the full version and install it. There's an installer there, just run it, and it will install all the packages. Why is this important? Well, especially if you're a beginner in tech LaTeX ecosystem, you may run into some issues unless you install specific packages, okay? So it is really important to install that first and install everything. So don't mind the space, you will be thankful later. Okay, so this is the kind of back-end thing, but there's also the front-end editor, which you may want to use for LaTeX, or if you want to use LyX, which is my suggestion, then you would use that as a front-end editor. So in that sense, there are several options that you can consider. So there's LyX, which I mentioned several times, but I've not shown you yet. There's Text Studio. If you want to use pure LaTeX, Text Studio is a great application. Also cross-platform, so you can use it across different operating systems. And it's really great as well with some autocomplete functionality, so you don't have to remember, okay, how did I call this reference, or how did I call this citation? It will actually prefetch everything, index everything, and just let you select from a list. So if you want total control over your documents in terms of code, okay, Text Studio is fine. JabRef is another application that I cannot recommend highly enough. There are also alternatives, some of which you may already know, like Mendeley, for example, or Zotero, the applications that you can use to keep your bibliography. However, I still find JabRef to be closer to home in terms of what it offers. First of all, it is fairly straightforward. What you get is databases which are represented by bib files, which in turn contain your references. Okay, so a lot of built-in functionality allows you to easily fetch references from the web. It also allows you to fetch related references using some techniques. And also, recently there was a feature that they only began implementing, which is systematic literature review. So now it's built into JabRef, which allows you to start doing a systematic, that is thorough literature review with JabRef. And already once you're done, you have a bibliography that you can directly use in a tech LaTeX ecosystem. But you can also, if that's your thing, you can also use JabRef with for example, Microsoft Word. So you just export the XML bibliography, and then you can import it into Microsoft Word, and you can just proceed from there. So it's also possible, and you can also do it like that. Okay, so let's have a look at LyX now. So this is an example source in LyX, and you can see that there's actually no code that is present here. So it's all just text, and then there's a little bit of math. And one of the stronger features of LyX is that, of course, it visualizes math for you. If you write documents with lots of math, you want this feature, at least as long as you're, let's say, beginner to intermediate in LaTeX, because this will save you a lot of time in debugging. So you write your equation in pure LaTeX, fine. If you know how to do that, you don't forget any of those curly braces. You don't forget to insert backslashes, spaces, things like this. Fine. However, with LyX, you directly see the equation displayed right before you, which can really help to understand the way that you insert mathematics with LyX. So in addition, here already you can see some of the other features, like for example here, we have something that is called an equation reference in LyX, but it's just a regular reference. Then we also have a citation over here. This is the way you insert them. You just insert them in the text, and then they have a bit of different background or something like that. But you immediately see them in the text, and you can easily edit them. You can add references, remove references, and so forth. Here we see some examples of, let me choose a different color maybe. Here we see some examples of inline math. So this would be displayed math. This is called displayed math. And these guys over here are inline math. So as you can see, like it also allows you to visualize properly all of the mathematical equations, be them displayed or inline. So a lot of flexibility in that, and but you will see that once we actually get to the actual document writing part. Okay, so and let's try to generate the output, and we get something like this. Again, really nicely typeset mathematical formulae and really nicely typeset text with the references, which you may remember from the previous slide. There was an equation reference over here. So it does not concern these equations. They have, let's say, numbers 10, 11. We don't see equation 3, but we can reference it just as easily here. So, and then we have the reference converted to IEEE citation format. If we go and look at the references, it will definitely be under number 7, okay? There is no other possibility with LaTeX. So, yeah, once you compile the document, all of the references will be pulled, all of the citations will be pulled, and then it will generate these nice structures and whatnot. Okay, moving forward. So Text Studio, example source code over here. Let's see, we'll try to zoom in a little bit. So yeah, so here you write pure LaTeX code or markup, and it looks like this, something like that. So you just type in the math directly, type text directly. And by the way, if you're not using lots and lots of math, for you, even like writing pure LaTeX code will not be so big of a problem, because you just need to learn a few structures. You have to learn how to cite things, how to reference things, and how to insert, let's say, structural elements such as sections. Once you do this in Text Studio, this is, by the way, some old version, you see it also assists you in providing you with the structure, well, obviously, right? So, which contemporary program related to programming or something doesn't do that? But it also allows you to insert more easily these things like references and citations, because it indexes the whole document, fetches them, and then gives you the opportunity to insert them into the text, right? So if that's your thing, if you want complete control over your markup, then probably this is what you would prefer to use. Okay, so not here. And the example result could look something like this. So we have, yeah, again, nice output. This comes from two-column document format. So we have two columns where we insert stuff. So this is why the width is relatively narrow of the text. All right, and finally we move to JabRef, which is used for bibliography management. So let me just comment briefly on the interface. So I already mentioned that we have here a kind of database. So in this case, we see that there are 4 tabs in total. So we can see that this one is kind of called personal publications.bib. This is a database full of these references. And then we have also 3 additional ones over here. So, and we can organize our research or our references or what have you in a logical way by creating these separate databases. And of course, you can categorize them as you want. So, for example, this one is personal publications, and so it concerns some of the publications that I've done before 2015. Right. So, zoom out here. A bit tricky with this touch screen. And if you generate bibliography with these references, here you go. So really nicely formatted references with all the information, of course, assuming that your bibliography is complete. So all of the necessary fields or required fields are filled in there, then you will have this nicely formatted publication automatically in any style that is out there. So this one is IEEE style, but you can also have author year style citations, anything that exists and supported by LaTeX, which is pretty much almost everything, you can have in your style here as well. Okay, so before we get to hands-on part, some important considerations with LaTeX. So some problems with Unicode, this is something that I've already mentioned. This can be fixed with advanced versions of the software. In fact, the example that I started with in this workshop with the document generated for the state-of-the-art report on extended reality technologies, this actually uses LaTeX or LaTeX. I think LaTeX was the latest one that I decided to use, but it supports Unicode because you cannot expect to convert, like do additional operation of conversion of Unicode characters to the representation of pure BibTeX, let's say, or LaTeX. Just to comment on that, let me give you an example because maybe that's a bit confusing. So in Unicode, for example, we have a character like this, capital A. And so how do you write this unless you have Unicode, right? In LaTeX, you would do something like this. So you would write a backslash, then you would insert the quotation mark, double quotation mark. Then you would maybe open curly brace, you would insert big capital A, and you would close it. And this would result in generating this specific symbol, which is not really convenient. A lot of times you want to just write in Unicode. So if that is the case, I would suggest using these guys because they allow it. But then you also have to use BibLaTeX because that's also directly supported in BibLaTeX. Okay, I mean, this is not a big problem, but you have to remember about it constantly when you're just starting out with LaTeX. Okay, so another thing that is mentioned here that is quite important is, of course, creation of new structural elements requires tech proficiency. Yes, that is true. However, if you use LyX, for example, there's a concept there that's called layouts. And you can create these layouts, and layouts are kind of universal term for environments and other structural elements. But if you learn to use these layouts in LyX, you can create pretty much any kind of template already based on, let's say, existing LaTeX templates that can be provided by conference journal or anything like this. Okay, so yeah, you can definitely do this with LyX. Again, we will come to that in a moment. Okay, images, manual image conversion. This is not so important with LyX. Okay, this is not so important with LyX. It will do it for you. It's smart enough for most images. So whatever that could be, SVG, scalable vector graphics, or PDF, or PNG, or JPEG, whatever, it can handle everything. Okay, so let's move on from here. We're almost done. So another piece of software that I would recommend if you're working with mathematics is called MathPix Snip. So I'm not sure that it's launched for me right now. Let me see if I press this. Nothing happens. Let me try this again. Okay. So I just want to show you what it does quickly. So now it should be launched, and now if I hit Control-Alt-M, the default shortcut, then what I can do is I can just snip off the screen. Like for instance, let's take this matrix equation, and you see it has been converted successfully into LaTeX code. So here in the middle, you can see the way that it interpreted it and rendered it. There's also a possibility to show the original. Then there's the confidence at the bottom. But the point is now you can just copy this text and paste it into your LyX or LaTeX document, and you will be able to typeset the same thing. One caveat with that is that the tool is free for up to 100 snips. If you're academic, if you have an academic account, or 50 snips if you're just a regular user, but a month. Okay, so which means that probably for a lot of people this will be enough. I mean, you don't regularly just go around snipping stuff, right? You have your own mathematical structures that you already have, like maybe these math macros or something like that. So, but still you can use it. It's very powerful if you want to quickly get the specific equation into your document for whatever reason. This I would suggest to do it this way unless you have access to the source code. Okay, so fairly straightforward process, lots of free snips, and once you get some of those equations, you can modify them and create math macros and whatnot. So very powerful stuff. Right, so let's finish with the theoretical part and focus on the actual writing part. Just a few references for further reading. So we have Donald Knuth, of course, the tech book, long read, let's call it. Then we have a not so short introduction to LaTeX, which will cater more to those who want to utilize the complete power of LaTeX specifically with regards to macro definitions and whatnot. Then we have the Tech Archive Network, or Comprehensive Tech Archive Network. And then we have Tech Users Group, which I think is a bit outdated. I'm not sure that it exists. Let me just quickly show the see this. No, it still exists, but you can see that okay, not very modern design and so forth. But okay, if you want, you can go here for getting some answers regarding PureTech. Okay, so I think with this we can finish the first part. And since we finished the first part, any questions regarding the theoretical aspects? Okay.
I have many questions, but I think maybe you will answer to it during this practical part, because as I understand, so without any programming skills, it is possible to use this LyX, yes, LyX software. Okay, some skills are needed. But regarding this referencing, so if we compare with Mendeley, so you would recommend this? This is better. Can we use, for example, DOI for adding reference?
Yes.
Or you will show it?
Yes, we can. So I've tried Mendeley, I've tried Zotero, and somehow I still keep using JabRef. I don't know, maybe in some ways that actually makes me less productive. I don't know, but honestly, I don't see much reason to switch to let's say to Mendeley from where I'm standing. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. Let's see. But JabRef is kind of universal tool. It's open source. There are no hidden things.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something that I really enjoy. That if you want a specific feature, let's say for productivity, and if maybe you know Java programming language, you can just go and have it. So that is for me as a programmer, this is really important.
And how do you think, okay, for example, I have used all my life this word, and after this great webinar, I decided to switch to LyX and start to produce my papers, research paper in LyX. But I have co-authors who work with Word. I have editors who work with Word. How do, for example, I wrote my part and I suggest them to add their comments, for example, how this works?
Yeah, that is
Does it
actually,
work?
yeah, that's a great question. Actually, I would even have a specific maybe meeting to just discuss those issues. So the problem is like trying to figure out these collaborative aspects is always a major thing. So it really depends on several aspects. Like, for example, if you're a researcher and you have specific specific journals that you would like to submit to or specific conferences, typically they would provide you both tech template or LaTeX template and Word template. Some conferences and some journals provide only Microsoft Word template, which is unfortunate. It doesn't mean that we should somehow stop using great software because of that. But unfortunately, sometimes this is what you have to do. With colleagues, it's a bit more challenging because you do have to, if you want to use it with them, you do have to teach them also to use that software. Maybe you can convert them to the good side in the end.
Because if we have international paper and I have someone from Riga, someone from Norway, and usually we work with this document, edit and comment. So, and at the moment, I don't see that, yes, for them. So it cannot be converted to Word, for example, for them and back. It will not be good.
So it's a challenging thing. So with LaTeX specifically, there is Overleaf.com, which is a collaborative platform for writing paper, for writing books like this. It does not support all the features LyX does. However, you can use LyX in conjunction with that because if you want to create a table in pure LaTeX, it's Sure, let's say LyX greatly reduces the effort. So you can just interchangeably use both of those systems and you can actually collaborate on documents with your colleagues. But you have to convince them that this is worthwhile endeavor. In a lot of cases, it's very difficult to convert people from using Word, especially since it's so dominant in the general the documentation, let's say.
That's why, as my next question, what do you think, how large is the share of researchers, okay, in our Taltech and maybe in the universe who use these links for academic writer? What do you think?
Yeah, not many people use it, unfortunately, but it doesn't mean that we should. So it's I mean, again, I've been using this ecosystem for 10 years already, and I've never looked back at using Word or something like this for publications. Granted, in collaborative efforts, we still use Overleaf, so I can go to overleaf.com and just write a paper with the other guys, but it's pure LaTeX then, so you have to learn that better. But you can.
I had some experience from reviewers. That's why when I saw information about this webinar, because I remember I got 2 times maybe some reviews, but why don't you use these links for what this title? Yeah. Why everybody use Word? Please use better tool for academic writing.
Yes, exactly. So I have nothing against Word as a tool, but the thing is that for every specific need, there is a tool that works a little better. And I would not use Word as a one-for-all solution. That is just uninformed. Since we do have tools that are far better in terms of, let's say, productive writing. I mean, not necessarily also for research. I mean, generally, you can write a book in LyX, for example, and it will be nicely typeset with all the necessary things taken care of for you.
Especially some reports, maybe, really. Yes, I see.
And you can also automate, because it's kind of markup language. You can also automate a lot of these features. So that's why definitely at least you should consider LyX. Maybe not for everything, but for some things that you have the freedom to choose, then just choose this one. You will not be sorry. There is a learning curve, but you will not be sorry in the end.
Okay, but I will have to restart computer to install this LyX. I have taken from our Taltech. I hope it works. This LyX software. We cannot install, some of us, without allowance of IT. Okay, thank you.
Understandable. Okay, so I think we should move forward now with the actual hands-on exercise, let's say. So this will be largely improvised. Again, since I do have some experience with LyX, then I can do it. Just give me a second. I will download something before sharing the screen that I will use as a kind of basis for further activities. Takes a few moments. Okay, so now we can continue. Share the screen again. Right, so what I did in the meantime is I just downloaded something that I'm actually doing with students in the scope of a course that is called Research Seminar, and I just downloaded to quickly, let's say, get started with showing you how some of these things work. So I double-click this guy over here, which is maybe a bit small, but it says references, and it's a BIP file. And now we get to JabRef. So this is the bibliography manager of my personal choice. It's straightforward, easy to use, and still feature-rich. So here I already have some of these references listed. So if I double-click a certain reference, I will get to the editing part. So the interface is organized like this. Every tab is a database of references, which you can add. You can create a new library by clicking on this guy over here. So you create a new library, and then you get all these references. Well, you start adding the references, and then you can add them in several ways. So, but the important thing is that this follows the actual BibTeX format. So if we have a look at that, this one, maybe not the best one. Let's see this one. So I will minimize this, or let's say make it smaller. Maybe also run magnifier, so we can focus on certain things. Okay, so this is how a reference looks like in this database. So first of all, we have this @ article. @ is just a kind of symbol that is with which every entry begins. Okay, so we have that, and then we have the type of entry. In this case, it's article. Then again, we start using the curly braces to denote, let's say, various structural elements. So this is the general group. So it's a kind of grouping mechanism, just like in LaTeX. So this group is the entry. So it begins with Tata 2020, which is the last name of the author, and 2020 is the year. And then we have comma, and then we have all the fields of this specific entry. And fields, well, in some ways, you can think about it if you know the JSON format. Then in some ways this is similar. So we have the specific parameter or field on the left. Then we have the equation equal sign over here. And then in, again, curly braces, we have the specific information for that field. So in this case, the first field is author. And also note that it's not authors, but it's author. Okay. And then we have a list of authors. Then the curly group is closed, and then we have another comma, which just separates these fields. Okay, one highly important thing to note when we're working with BibTeX. So whenever you have, let's say, these authors here, this is the keyword that separates the authors. And, right? So this will be the separator in all cases. This is very important because sometimes you can see, okay, even like people using Microsoft Word or even using LaTeX, in the references section, you get something like first reference K, J, Y, T, M, S, and it goes on and on and on. And then finally there's some last name, let's say Oda, right? And then the name of the article and so forth. So this, in LaTeX specifically, this appears because you're missing the end keyword. And you want to, let's say, separate authors by using a semicolon, which is not the supported way of doing it here. This is how you do it. You use it with the end keyword, okay? So just be very mindful of this one. Right, so then we have, for this specific entry, we have journal is like the actual journal where this is published, and these fields will be slightly different for different entry types. So for example, for article, we have journal. For in proceedings, we have, don't remember the exact field right now, but it will be different in book or something like this. Book title. Which would then point at the proceedings, okay? So here we have journal, which in this case is communications biology. We have title, training instance segmentation, blah, blah, blah. Year, month, number, volume, comment, DOI, of course. And then we have also publisher. So here in JabRef, what is really, really convenient is that you have, in the tabs, you have the required fields listed as well. So with the magnifier, it doesn't really show well. So let me have a look here. You see required fields over here. This is what you're expected to input so that the entry is complete. And here also you have a preview of the entry. In this case, it's in IEEE format. So one very important suggestion that I have for you, just starting to use JabRef, go to options, go to preferences, and change some things. Specifically, what I really, advise to change is, let me find this. Citation key generator over here. So this one will allow you to customize the way that your entries will be named. So for example, in case of this entry, the citation key was TOTA 2020, okay? So that is not very informative, and it is not very, it is prone to problems if you have the same author publish several papers in 1 year, okay? So you can have TOTA 2020A, TOTA 2020B, and so forth. But is that really informative? If you're looking, for example, in your application of choice to cite a specific paper by the key, then what does this give you? It gives you nothing. So one thing that I would suggest doing is I would change the default pattern. Again, I will zoom in a little bit here. I wonder why this cannot find the magnifier. I have a shortcut memorized for the magnifier. So here you see we have author year dash short title. A short title will take a few first words from the title of the paper and it will insert them here as a short title, removing the spaces obviously because the entry key cannot have spaces. So you will then have something much more meaningful. Author year short title will then result in TOTA 2020 and then the first parts of the paper, and I can show you this by regenerating this key. Now, bear in mind that if you have already papers where you use those keys, regenerating the keys might not be a good idea because you will then, in those papers, have to replace all the references manually. This is not very good. So immediately, once you start using JabRef, if you want to start using JabRef, create a very nice pattern for your keys. And don't mind the keys that are imported from Crossref or DOI.org or any other source. Create your own keys, generate them, and they will be much more meaningful. So let's generate this one. And here it will ask me if I want to overwrite the keys. Yes, I do. So now you see we have Toda 2020. For some reason, there is no dash. I wonder why, but never mind. So training instance segmentation. So this is the first words of the paper title. Training instance segmentation, neural network with synthetic data sets, blah, blah, blah. Okay, this is much more meaningful, easier to find. Okay. So essentially, this is how you work. By the way, if you want to change the preview over here, so you would go to options, again, to go to preferences, and unfortunately, there's search, so preview, current preview, and so you see right now selected, I have IEEE with URL. So this is what I'm currently using. And you can choose whatever you want, whatever kind of preview you want, you can choose among the entries here, which I guess are based on these CSL files. I'm not sure, but probably that's the case. Okay, so let's now see how you can add additional papers here. So first of all, it's very easy from JabRef to navigate to the specific paper. Let's see the Toda paper. You can just click on this, it will resolve the DOI, and then it will go directly to the paper in question. So in this case, it's communications biology, and here's the paper. Okay, so it has 16 citations, which is fine. I need to remove the magnifier. Oh, give me a second with that. So here's the paper. So what we can do now is, let's say we want to do forward snowballing, okay? So we have 16 citations, so we do have something to work with. And by the way, it was published in 2020 and already it has 16 citations. Good job. So we can just find, this is what? This is Nature, okay. So I'm not sure where you find citations here, to be honest. So there's something like, okay, so here we have cite this article. Further reading, I guess, would work as well, although I would enjoy if citations were directly reported somewhere here. Probably they are, but right now I don't remember where they are. With the multitude of websites and publishers, it's easy to get lost with these things. Because I can see references over here, but I cannot really see where the citations are. If anyone in the audience finds this, let me know. But for now, let's go. No, this is just for DOI stuff. I'm interested in forward snowballing. I want to see the papers that cited this paper. Okay, but okay, here we have further reading. Maybe it's nice suggestions. Let's see. So deep learning-based high throughput phenotyping can drive future discoveries in plant reproductive biology. Okay. That's something that I really expected. Yeah, I cannot see for some reason the citation stuff.
Maybe we can use Google Scholar. Just copy the title.
Yes, but usually with publishers, you can directly see who has actually cited this paper. Okay, so I'm upset at Nature. I will close it. I will use another paper as an example. So let's see what is this? Forensic science. Who's the publisher? Is my question. Quickest way, Elsevier. Okay, this one should work. So let's see this one. Learn with diversity from harder samples, improving the generalization of convolutional neural network space detection of computer-generated images. This is Elsevier, Science Direct, so it will be fairly easy to find citing articles. In this case, unfortunately, there are only 2. Fine. So, but okay. Let's see. Comprehensive review of deep learning. Look at this. Something really, really useful, I guess. Deep learning based methods for image forensics, published by MDPI, Journal of Imaging. So, okay, we want to add this specific reference to our bibliography. So how are we going to do this? Well, let's see the DOI of this specific paper. Share and cite. DOI, where are you? Okay, here we go. So let's take this one. And let's go back to our bibliography. And let's add a new entry by clicking this menu plus icon, because what this will give us is it will give us a selection of entry types So there's recommended. These are the most used: article, book, in proceedings, tech report, and MISC for miscellaneous. And if you just click on this plus here, you will just insert an article, which is usually what we do, since the majority of research are published in articles, as articles. So, but here, okay, there's also another possibility. We can add this stuff via DOI. And unfortunately, I have to say that this depends on the provider, and there was a hiccup with DOI resolution recently. But let's see if it's still there, or maybe it has been fixed. So you insert the DOI here, and then you just click on generate. And here we go. So the article has been inserted. So let's see if everything is in place here. So we have author, correct, title, correct, year, 2021, month, number, pages, volume, DOI, publisher. Uh-oh, we don't have the journal title. So this is still a problem with the current DOI resolution, and it was not like this half a year ago. They changed something in the API, and the software developers are still catching up to this fact. So there is some inconsistency right now with DOI resolution. However, it's not a big problem for us. We just need to be cautious of this, okay? So we can go to required fields, and you will see that journal is actually missing right now. So we need to, oh my God, insert it manually. So this is Journal of Imaging of MDPI. So we can just look at how it's, okay, J Imaging, Journal of Imaging. Okay, so in that case, I will say Journal of Imaging. And you can see immediately in the preview, now it looks fine. So we have the specific publishing venue, not only the title, authors, and volume without journal title. That's great. Anyway, so as you can see, it's fairly easy to insert these references into JabRef via DOI. And other things that you can also do, here you can click on related articles. And what this will do is JabRef will actually take the specific paper, all of the metadata, and then it will generate some suggestions for you based on those metadata. So for example, based on this comprehensive review, a few other paper titles that came up: review of MRI-based tumor image segmentation using deep learning methods, comprehensive review of handcrafted and learning-based action representation approaches for human activity recognition, and so forth and so forth. So already from here, you can kind of start building your literature. So you don't even have to leave the comfort of JabRef. Another thing that it supports as well is you can, let me see where this exists, web search. This is very, very cool. Here's what you can do. Let's say I go to IEEE Explore. So here I specify it. Let me again turn the magnifier on so that we can see what we're doing. So again, what I did is I went into view and enabled this web search. Okay, so now from this dropdown, I also chose IEEE Explore. And now I search for something like, for example, let's see, again, deep learning. And here's what happens. It gets you a whole bunch of papers on deep learning, like evaluation of deep learning techniques and sentiment analysis, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so you can import a whole bunch of these papers immediately based on your search. Okay, so for example, if I were to do this, select all new entries, let's say, and 20 entries according to that search, I can import them. And what will happen is it will just directly import all of those references. Let me again close the magnifier into the bibliography. And then you can just start looking into each one because they're imported with the link. So you can just click on this link and you will go directly into onto the page of the specific entry, specific paper. So this is keynote abstracts, maybe not so interesting, right? Of course, depends on what you're looking for. So maybe you want to delete this one. Just delete it. Then we have, this is from previous, I guess. something like that, runaway detection localization, digital image computing, blah, blah, blah. Also, here you see that even the papers are directly linked. So you can just click on that, and you should directly go to the actual paper without going into the database. So, and then you can read it, mark it, and do other things. Yeah, so very convenient stuff. Again, because of this DOI resolution, maybe you need to check these references out, see if all the required fields are filled. Unfortunately, in this case, book title, as with the journal, is missing. So what you would do in this case, you would go to the actual page of this one. This is a conference, so you can just copy this this stuff from here. Take this, going back to here, and just put the book title in, okay? Something like that. Okay, so I will actually maybe undo some of these things. Okay, seems I cannot undo the import. Well, whatever, doesn't matter. So yeah, this is how essentially you work with JabRef. The most important, let's say, introductory ideas have been discussed. So now let's go into LyX, since we only have something like 35 minutes left of this meeting, and LyX requires some introduction. Okay, let me save this, and I will go into LyX. I've already opened it. This is version 2.3.5.2. So I think now 2.3.6 is available, but this is a bit of an older version. So this is how the interface of LyX looks like. So you have a bunch of stuff here with respect to the icons. So the first thing that you might want to do with LyX is go to Help and open Introduction. What this will do is it will open a LyX document, which is essentially the introduction to LyX. What is great about that is that you immediately see how you would go about writing stuff directly in LyX, and then you can also compile it and see how it looks like. So for example, this document of LyX, let's compile it. Takes a bit of time because this is not exactly what you see is what you get kind of thing. So, and once I compile it, here's the result. So we have introduction to LyX, we have the front matter along with the table of contents, which is generated, of course, automatically. We also have these nice bookmarks created for us also automatically, so we can just navigate the document based on those, or we can scroll the document. And again, you can see that the typesetting quality is outstanding here. All of the structural elements, all of the margins, all of these various spacing problems have been solved for us automatically. But look at what we have started with. Just flow of text, then there's a section, then there's something else, and we're just typing the text. We are not focusing on how it will look like at this stage. We're focusing on the content, and then once we generate the actual document, we can think about, okay, I want this section, let's say, or I want this table to look a little different. Like, let's see where the table is. Okay, here's the table. I want it to be, I don't know, maybe multi-page table or something along those lines. And then you would go back and you would change it. Maybe you want to give it a little more width or something like that. So you have this great flexibility in what you can do with the layout and with the style itself. But first and foremost, you focus on the content, okay? So, and you have a whole bunch of these structural elements already available to you in LyX by default. Okay, so this is the introduction to LyX, not a very thorough document, obviously, so 12 pages. However, let's see how we can get started with let's say, a blank document. So I will close this, Control F4, and in order to create a new document in LyX, what you would do is press Control N. And is just a blinking cursor on a background here, nothing more than that. So what are the first steps? Well, some of the first steps that I would suggest, of course, is to learn and memorize some of the useful shortcuts that you will find in LyX. Why? Because this will enhance your productivity as well. Like this Alt-I, for example, which stands for Insert Menu. You will be using this a lot in LyX. So if you want to insert a citation, you would Alt-I and then press C to insert a citation. For cross-reference, that would be R. For a label, it would be L, and so forth. So for table, it would be T. And so this is like something that definitely I would recommend spending time on. But yeah, so before we get started with that, okay, you're presented with just a blinking cursor. What do you do next? So you have to pay attention to this element over here. I will not use magnifier. I will just point a few arrows at it. So this drop-down list. In LyX, this is your best friend because it actually specifies more than anything else the document structure. So this drop-down list will be used to determine what kind of things we're working on right now in terms of document structure. So just click on it, and you see there's a drop-down here with various possible structural elements. But when we start the document, the first thing obviously that we want to do is we want to insert a title. So let's insert a title, and let's call this my first, oh my God, how far this is from the truth. LyX document. By the way, there is a command for LyX as well, as far as I remember. So let's press Control L, and this is called evil red text. In these boxes, you can insert directly commands of pure LaTeX this way, and for some of these, some of the features, I would prefer to insert them this way. Not for everything, but certainly for some things. So let's insert the title. Let's also insert the author. So again, click on this drop down here and choose author. And let's say John Doe, the author of this one, and then press enter. And again, we are in standard layout. So one thing that people typically hate about LyX is that it does not allow you just to insert a whole bunch of spaces. If I press space now, nothing happens. It actually cares about the structure of the document and cares about the what you type. So you cannot just type everything what you want here. It's pointless in many ways. But the point is that it does not allow you to create something ugly by default. Okay, so I can insert a non-breaking space as much as I want, so but that's not the same thing. Okay, so this would be the front matter, the document title, and the name. And then we can just start creating the document. Let's create the first section. And there is sectioning here. There's two different types of sections. So there's sections which are numbered, and there are sections which are unnumbered. So the numbered sections go into the table of contents by default. Unnumbered do not. You can also insert them into the table of contents if you want as well. But by default, they're not going to go there. Okay, so let's create a section as well. So this first section, let's call it my first section. And press enter once, and let's type in some text. So this is a very, very bare bones document. And if you were wondering what kind of document it is, what kind of document class, it's article. I will show you in a moment where you can find that. But first, let's save it. So I will just save this document to desktop in the folder that I've downloaded with this computer vision stuff. Call it first LyX or something along those lines. So now we have this one, and let's see what we get as a result of. We get something that you will probably see a lot in your first steps. I think it's because LyX is not actually a structure, so let's call it just LyX and generate. So to generate, you press on the eyes there, and okay, here we go. My first LyX document, front matter, John Doe, November 5th. By the way, the date is inserted automatically in this template. My first section, some text. Great, so we were able to get some output out of this one. So let's now have a look at where some of the other things can be set up. A very important part is whenever you are dealing with LyX, is you go to the menu and then you have settings, document and then settings. This is where you would set a lot of these customizations that you may want to introduce into your document. So for example, here by default, we have article standard class. There's also a mysterious button over here called local layout, but let's not get into that too much right now. So we have article standard class. But from here, you can also choose different types of document classes. For instance, let us actually choose report. First of all, let me find it. This is not this. Okay. Report standard class with extra font sizes. Let's choose this one. And let's apply it. And let's see how that changes the document. Now we see that the section somehow became 0.1. This is because of the specific layout of this report class, that it also requires you to specify, apart from the section, also chapter. Okay, so let's generate this. Let's see how it looks like. So now you see we are not starting the text on the first page. This is reserved for the title. And here we go. We start on the next page, and now we have this 0.1, my first section, and this is somewhat confusing. So it is, of course, possible to remove this 0.1. It requires additional configuration. I don't have time now to show you this, but if you are confused by this, don't worry. It's possible to fix, no problem. With reports, the idea is that mostly you will have chapters also, not only sections, and this would take care of 0.1. So it would then just use the chapter as the first counter. So it would be chapter 1, section 1, and then you start writing your stuff. Okay, so one thing, if you're just writing a quick report, maybe you want to use, instead of this unnumbered section, which will not have a number, something like this. So it's a quick fix.
How can we generate? What can you show this this generation?
Yeah, so
I can't find. Sorry.
Okay, if you have MikTeX installed.
Yes, I have opened. Yes.
And then you need to also install MikTeX. You've done that,
yes,
right?
Yes,
Okay. MikTeX and then LyX. This is the procedure. So unless you have that installed, you will not be able to generate the documents, because LyX also needs to know where the backend lives so that it can use all the tools from there to generate the document. But if everything is configured correctly, you can just click on these eyes over here, or you can press Control-R if you're on Windows. Then it will also generate the preview, essentially.
Yes, eyes are not working, so I will install it. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. So, and once you're ready, once you're really happy with your document, then you just go and export it. And you see there are a lot of different formats that are available here. Like, for instance, there's PDF LaTeX, which is default. I would recommend this one. And then you just export it. And after a while, you get this file, first LyX, and here we go. So the first document and the first section. However, we do not get a bookmark with this because this is not a numbered section. So you see, there are some things that may be a little bit confusing at first, but if you really spend some time trying to figure those out, in the end, it will not be so difficult to generate exactly what you need. Okay, so also in document settings, that's not the only thing that you can change. In fact, let me change back to maybe article, standard class. Here, you can also choose the modules that you want to attach to the document, so some of the features. Local layout, this allows you to create additional elements in this dropdown. Fonts, so you can use also non-tech fonts if you want, but then you have to use a different typesetting engine, so PDF LaTeX will not work anymore. On the other hand, there is support for Unicode, let's say. If you're, so if you're used to Times Roman, for example, you can also choose it here. It's a standard font that comes with LaTeX, so you can just take it here. Text layout, this is where you choose what kind of indentation you want. Either the usual one where the first paragraph is indented, or you want vertical space. Page layout, this is where you choose what kind of layout you want. Margins, something that a lot of people want to change immediately since they're not used to this more compact layout of the article, because if you see, if you like, okay, this is still report class, I think. I did not apply the changes yet. Let me do this. Okay, so here it's fairly compact. You see the margins are quite wide. So a lot of people prefer to work with narrower margins, which you can definitely set here. So just remove default margins and then set whatever you want to your heart's content. But remember that there are some rules in typography which you should probably adhere to. Language, this will be important for generating various structural elements. Like, for instance, if you choose Estonian language here, then some of the structural elements, such as figures and so forth, will be called in correspondence with the language. So instead of figure, you will see Ionis, for example. Then colors, something that people typically do not use. Numbering, bibliography. So here we have the style format: basic BibTeX, default BibTeX style is plain. You can choose the default BibTeX style here, but you can also do that with the bibliography, as we will see in a few moments. We have indexes, PDF properties. HyperRep support will give you these nice bookmarks and whatnot. Math options, what kind of packages are used. So you see, a lot of these things have been taken care of automatically in LyX. Really, really useful. Float placement, something that I hope we have time to discuss, because we're running out of time, unfortunately. It's a long topic, so maybe we can do a follow-up seminar on this. But okay, so, and here finally we arrive at LaTeX preamble, which can be used to specify specific packages that you may want to use with your document, which will give you typesetting ability, let's say, again, for liner notes or something along Gantt charts or something along those lines. Okay, so right now it's empty. I don't have anything. Well, actually, typically what I do is I use package site, and I use package microtype. These are generally useful packages. So site and microtype, and this is use package. Generally useful. I typically insert them anyway, and let's try to generate again. If there are no errors, then probably everything is good. Okay, there's a problem that right now, for some reason, cannot automatically close the PDF. I'm not sure that this is the case in newer versions of LyX, but it is here. So I have to close it before I regenerate. Okay, nothing changed much, but I did specify those packages, and the fact that there were no errors means that they were successfully loaded. Okay, so we have 20 minutes and a lot of ground to cover, so maybe I will be a little faster. Okay, so how do you insert bibliography? This is one of the more important features, right? Because if you're doing research, let's say, any kind of research, not only scientific research, you want to base it off of facts, or at least of reliable sources. So you want to insert definitely a bibliography in your document. So the way you do it is you go to insert. I don't memorize the shortcut for this, because it's done once per document usually. So here you go to list/talk. TOC, table of contents, and here you see all the other structural elements that you can use, like table of contents, which will also be generated automatically. Very nice, especially for theses. I would say, like, forget about Word in that sense. All of those things will be nicely updated, and everything will be in its place. But we're interested in inserting BibLaTeX bibliography, so click on this one, and here now we can see this dialog window says databases. They're empty, nothing here yet. We will add the previous database, but before that we will also add IEEE full. This is just the expansion of some of the journal names. So if we have journals specified in BibTeX as kind of variables, it will take those and it will expand them, and everything will be good. So, but we also need to add the bibliography. So references are here. Let's add them. Yeah, so they're added here. Style, by default, it's plain, which is useless. So typically in technical university, we want to use IEEE style, so IEEE Tran, but you can also use other styles as well. But bear in mind that if you change the style here, you may also want to go and change the style of referencing. I cannot show you now, but okay, here we have IEEE Tran. What you want to do also, once you change this here, if you want author here citations, you may also want to go into document properties and here in bibliography choose something other than the basic bib tag, like not bib, for example, for author year or something along those lines. Okay, so we have inserted a bibliography. What does this give us? Well, now we can cite stuff. Okay, so the shortcut for that is Alt-I-C. And once I press that, then we see all of those citations that are currently available. LyX took the opportunity, went into the bib file, took all those references out of there, registered them, and now we can actually use them for citations. So let's see. Again, I've imported quite a bit of these papers, so journals will be missing in some of them. So we will not see those in preview. This can be fixed later. Okay, so you just double click to insert the references or the citations here. And once you click OK, you get your citations in the text where you want them to be. Let me put a period here. And let's also create another subsection maybe, or let's create a section instead. And let's make the first one also numbered. So the way you do it, obviously, is just click on the structural element, and then you go into the dropdown and you choose what you want. Alt-P space is the, Alt-P space is the shortcut for that, so I can quickly get to the necessary dropdown. Some more text. Okay, let's generate this one. And here we go. So these green frames appear because I have enabled HyperRef, and you can disable that, but maybe for various visual purposes, this could actually be useful for the document. So yeah, click on this one, you immediately go to the specific reference, and you can see where it is, what it is, and so forth. So with the second reference, I can see that this is not a complete entry, so I need to go back into JabRef and to fix it. But I will not do so now because of interest of time. But again, it's fairly easy to use these features, and they're fairly intuitive, and it's very, very easy to insert these references, as you can see. And once you compile the PDF, they will be in the correct place, they will have the correct numbers, everything will be great, your work will be cut out for you. Okay, so three more things, and then we will have to conclude, unfortunately, due to time constraints. So 3 more things. Inserting math. Control-Shift-M on Windows will give you math display mode. And with math, what you do is you can use LaTeX commands to insert math, or you can go into the menu over here at the bottom, and you can insert math from here. But I do it with code. So, for example, sum. \sum will give you this big sigma. And now you can type in something like k equals 1 after you type in, of course, shift underscore to go into the bottom here, right after the symbol, and then shift 6 for the upper, what's it called? So to go to the top of this sum, type in m, let's say, and do something like k squared, something like this. So we have a very simple equation here. Now, in order to make it a numbered equation, you press Alt-MN, and then it's numbered. If you want to reference this equation, you do Alt-IL, which inserts a label. So you can do all of these things by going to Insert menu. So you will find them there. And by default, the label will be EQ, and then simple equation will be my label for it. And so now I can reference the equation by pressing Alt-IR. And now I get a cross-reference dialog box. and this is where all of the sections, all of the structural elements, all of the floating elements will go, actually. So here currently I have only one label, which is the simple equation, so I double click it, and I reference the equation. Now, of course, you also need to use the parentheses since this is an equation, okay? So let's see how that went. Also, again, you can see that we're actually having a preview of the equation. Let me zoom in here. So very well typeset math, as always, and also reference to this equation, so you can quickly navigate to it. So this would make a lot more sense, for example, if we had an equation on a different page, then you would click on this reference and then you would go to the specific equation. Again, if these borders around links bother you, you can turn them off. Let me show you quickly how it's done. So you can go to Document, Settings, and here in HyperRef, PDF Properties, go to Hyperlinks and then No Frames Around Links. Here, and then just apply that change. And now if I recompile, let me make it a little larger maybe, just so you can see better what is here. Let me run this guy over here again. And here we go. No more frames. And everything looks very good. Okay, so in the same way you would address sections. For example, you would say something like Alt-IL, and now the label begins with section and also proposes a name for your section, which is my first section. You can OK that, and then now you can also reference the section. So I reference the section, or I reference section non-breaking space. Very important, non-breaking space, Alt-I, R, and now you can also group these. Tick the group guy, and then you can open sections. And from here, you can insert the reference to your section. Okay, so let me see how that looks. So we have two major features that we have not discussed yet, which is floating point structures, including images and tables. I will try to be as quick as possible with that. We have 5 minutes for each, so let's see how far we can go. So again, if you click this one, you go to the specific section, everything works fine, all the references are correct, etc., etc. Great. So let us insert now an image. Now in LyX and in LaTeX specifically, what you have is a kind of concept of floats. This is very, very useful. So instead of just putting an image into the text flow, maybe breaking the text flow, and well, probably if you work with Word, you know what I mean. You insert a floating structure. So insert figure float. Now we have figure float here. This is the caption, which is by default that I have to fill. This is my first figure, and I will immediately generate the label, Alt-IL. And again, this will have a different prefix. In this case, it will be fig. This is my OK, fine. So use this one, and usually I want my figure centered, so I press Ctrl-L, I insert some evil red text here, \centering. You can also do it otherwise, but I prefer to do it like this because I can just see the markup much better. Okay, and now I need to insert some sort of figure here. Okay, let's see what we can do. Let's see, we have a paper over here. Hopefully it will have some nice figures. By the way, look, frames around links are in this paper as well. So let's take this scary figure. I will use Windows Snip tool to quickly generate it. Just like this. And come on, where are you? Windows Snip. Nothing. No answer. Fine. Okay, so save as. Let's keep it untitled. It doesn't really matter for the purposes of this demonstration. Okay, let's also close this file right here. Now, we've inserted this figure float. Now we will insert the figure itself. So Alt-I and graphics G, and let's locate our figure, which is untitled.png. Now, very important thing, whenever you insert figures or other things that require setting the width, never set it in absolute units, unless it's required for some purpose. But whenever you have a general figure that you want to have, let's say, a width that would be aesthetically pleasing and would not deter from reading, use relative units. For example, here we have text width, column width, %, right? So I would suggest using column width. The reason for that is if you go to a two-column document, this will still apply. Text width will crash your document, basically. So let's use column width. And let's make this figure, let's say 60% of column width. Let's OK this and let's see how this looks. Again, in LyX, all of the images are automatically converted to the necessary format. You don't have to worry about that. Whereas with something like LaTeX, you have to convert all the images to a specific format. OK, so here we go. We have this this guy. So right now, the figure actually appears after references, which is something that I don't want to do. So how do you determine the placement? Well, again, first of all, you see 60% of width for this image size, I think, is appropriate for this document with the margins and whatnot. So that's great, but it appears in the wrong place. How do you specify where it appears? Right-click on figure float, choose settings, and here choose, instead of default placement, choose what you want. So for example, usually I use top of page, bottom of page, here if possible. Those choices. And they have some sort of precedence. So now if I regenerate this document again, you see the figure now appears where I actually put it, not after the references, which is illogical in my opinion. So we now have this figure inserted, everything is great. And if we were to copy this text or change the document from a single column to a two-column document, it would still take 60% of the column width. And let me quickly demonstrate that actually. So let me copy this figure. And in LyX, of course, you have this great thing you can do new from template. And here you already have a bunch of templates available. Like, for example, IEEE conference. Okay, so it will have all of this stuff already there. Let's plug this into previous work, text, and our image. Okay, let's generate this file and see how that looks. But I guess you can already understand why these floating structures are great, because you don't have to worry anymore about images going every which way in your document, okay, compared to some other pieces of software that I will not mention. So again, here, look, it's 60% of column width, not text width, because text width is the whole thing. Column width is this one. You can use it both in single column documents and in two column documents. Perfect, great, fine. So let's talk about tables now, another feature that is absolutely critical when it comes to LaTeX and specifically LyX. So you have to insert a specific float for it because it has to know what kind of float it is, of course, in order to create a list of floats, like list of tables, list of figures, right? So this table will be my first super quick table example. Alt-I-L, insert a label to that, and of course you can reference all of those things. I created it in the two-column format. Let me just cut it away from here. Let's go back to our first LyX. Let's go to the other section, and let's put the table here. Now it condensed itself a little bit, so I just need some additional return presses, so centering, obviously. The caption is there. Now I just need to insert the table. So it can be done here, like let's say 5x4. So here's the table, and now you can just start filling it. Now at the bottom, you can see there's a preview of pure LaTeX. And you see, if you think about inserting it manually, it's a big chore, it's a big problem. I would not recommend it. So let's say, what did I want to change? Borders, make it formal, make it look much nicer. In the end, so A, B, C, D, and then let's have some 2, 3, 4. I don't know, something. Let's make it a sparse table just to make a demonstration. So let's generate this one. See what we get. And by the way, the caption of the table has to be above the table. So let's also fix that problem. So now the table is alone on the new page, but it's not a problem because right now we will fix it. I will show you one more really useful stuff, useful method, but first let's fix this problem. So here we go. And now, again, as with the figure floats, you can also change table settings in that sense. So right now we have the default placement, but you can also specify top page, bottom page here if possible. A better option yet would be, in many cases, well, not in all cases, obviously, if you want the image to be specifically on the page or the table specifically on the page, you can have it there. But there's a very useful possibility you also have here. This is called page of floats. Choose this one, page of floats for the table, and choose the same for the image. So here, settings, and you can choose page of floats. I'll remove the rest. So what this will do, especially if you have larger images or you want to combine them somehow, you select this approach, you generate the document. Again, okay. This does not work. I guess in the newer version of LyX, it should be fixed. Okay, generate again. Here we go. So now we have the document, we have the text as it is, and we have the references. Oh my God, where are the images and tables? They're on the next page. This is going to be considered the page of floats. How is this useful? Well, first of all, think about how people read papers, reports, documents, etc. Usually you do not really want to get interrupted in the middle of a sentence with a figure or let's say a table. You want them to go to specific locations where you can you will be sure that they will not be deterrents to the reader, right? So this is a very powerful technique when you just push all of them into a specific page and then you just reference them. Look how easy it is. Here is my first image. Reference the image. It's easy because it's a figure, so we just open that group and let's say figure, non-breaking space, control space is how you insert that. So save it, generate the document one more time, final time actually. So you see figure one, I can click on this and I go to the specific figure. Easy. Okay, so unfortunately the time is up. I tried to put a lot into this first workshop. I think maybe we can also have a follow-up to this, but maybe not soon. Let's see, so it's enough information for you to get started. And again, I welcome everyone to read the help of LyX. Shortcuts, very useful. Just go there, read it. And then you can really start creating documents very fast, very efficient. You will, and it doesn't matter what kind of document it is. If you want, you can customize the document layout, the template itself by going to document settings. As I mentioned, for example, you can change the margins. Typically, this is what people want to change in the first place. Then you can go to fonts. You can choose fonts up to your liking. Like, for example, okay, let me just do it one more time. Let's choose a different Roman font. Like, for instance, let's choose Palatino, which is a very nice font. A bit noisy, but still really nice. So let's generate the document one more time with Palatino as the body text font. And here we go. Looks really nice. But again, the second reference needs to be amended. This must be done in JabRef. Okay, but that's it from my side. Sorry if the information flow was a bit turbulent. Tried to include as much relevant information to get started as possible. So now I can take a couple of quick questions because I have another meeting. And also, don't hesitate in writing to me. If you have further questions, just use my email. This video will be shared with the participants through Eventbrite or somehow else. And if you have any questions, concerns regarding LyX or LaTeX or JabRef, or you have suggestions, anything, you can reach me using that email address. So any quick questions?
spelling is available, spell check is available for
Okay, yes, very, very good question. So yes, it is available. So you would go to document in the menu of LyX. You would go to, or no, sorry, you go to tools and then you go to spell checker. It doesn't work exactly as it would in Word, let's say. So typically you just have to write everything and then you do the spell checking. So it will go through all the words, any unknown words that it will find, it will highlight, and then you have to replace them. It will also have suggestions. I think in the recent version, you can also enable this live underlining.
You can select the red line.
Yes, you can also enable it so that it does continuous spell check. It's in the menu. You can see there are ABC. I mean, I stopped sharing the screen, so if you look at the interface, there you will see on the
I will
top.
find. Thank you. Just asking.
Yeah, yeah, it's there. It's not maybe as advanced as Word, but again, it's not a big deterrent in my opinion.
Thank you very much, and thank you for a great webinar.
You're welcome. Thank you for attending. So, any other questions? Okay, it looks like there are no questions. So once again, thank you very much, everyone, for attending this workshop. I hope it was informative. For the guys from Center for Intelligent Systems, I guess we will continue discussing these various issues. Anyone else, please, as I said, you can find my email in the presentation. And just if you have any questions or suggestions or anything like that, please let me know. So thank you very much. I stop recording here and have a great day and great weekend. Take care.